Um, Michigan's ready to be crowned already, and Ohio State looks like they may be facing another tough test. This week on 30-Minute War. Well, you heard it here first. Maryland is supposedly this whole big thing. I mean, we've seen this offense before. We've seen this production out of Maryland before. Mm-hmm. Ohio State beats Maryland by averages putting up 57 points on Maryland every time. But yet, because we're looking at an offense of the 90s that we haven't seen in ages, everyone's counting out Ohio State. And I am here to tell you what. I counted out Ohio State against a better team. And Ohio State proved me wrong. Ohio State is about to take these doubters and shove some nasty luck up to where the sun don't shine.
Oh, boy.
I get that Maryland is tough. Maryland is fast. Maryland can put up the points. Tua, Leah is dangerous. There's nobody. Remember the last time we played Tua Leah here? We were on par, baby. We stopped Tua Leah, shut him down. He has slightly better weapons this time. And yes, I get that Maryland just slaughtered the crap out of Indiana, but what's the word? We beat this team and you beat that team, but we beat this team by more. That crap doesn't matter. I forget the technical term. I just don't see. Don't get me wrong. Maryland's going to put up some points. We're not gonna shut out Maryland, or not shut out, but blow out Maryland. We're not going to do like a 63-10 Western Kentucky type. This offense is not made to do that. Now, the only way that could happen is the defense really shows up, and JTT and Jack Sawyer coming off the edges have great games this week. JTT is still looking for a 2022 Penn State style of performance again this year. I don't think we've seen it out of him just yet. He needs to be having that like every week, though, because I mean, yes, he's a threat. He's always a threat. But it's a matter of how much of a threat really is he? I think this offense is going to just wear down the Maryland defense. Because at this point, Ohio State is meant to put points on the board, wear you down, stop you from putting points on the board, win the game. A win is a win.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I actually think that this could be a historic Saturday where Maryland comes in to the shoe and pulls off the most historic upset in the history of college football. And let me explain why. I had the pleasure of watching Maryland play Ohio State close last year while on the bus coming back from the Illinois game when it was snowing and Ann Arbor was about to have like a minor blizzard. And so I got to watch that game, and Talia played his heart out. It was impressive. Obviously, he went down, and Ohio State was able to win that game. But I think you would agree, Buckeye Mike, that Kyle McCord is not CJ Stroud. And if you look at the stats that Maryland is putting up, 38.6 points per game. How about this? Fourth down efficiency, 7 for 7, 100%. When they go for fourth down, they make it every single time. And look, I know that they played teams called Indiana, and they've played a schedule. Colin Cowherd talked about it today. Not the toughest schedule ever, and I get that. But Ohio State, as we've said, has a lot of question marks. Marvin Harrison Jr. It should be back from injury. He should be back, but my guess is he's going to be on a snap count. And so you're going to have to rely on Emeka Egbuka and Cade Stover, who are great. An O-line that's not up to, I would argue, Ohio State caliber. And a defense that's improved, right? But you're up against a Maryland team. I think Taulia in his probably his last year before going to the NFL. He's got something to prove. And when you look at seniors and you look at super seniors in college, one of two things happens. Either they get senioritis or they're Baker Mayfield, they win the Heisman Trophy. It's one or the other, right? And I think that this might be the second. Now, Maryland and the matchup isn't amazing because Maryland and Ohio State are similar, I think, in some ways and how they approach the game. So maybe the matchup isn't perfect because Ohio State's used to defending against this type of offense in practice. But I would say if anybody could go into the shoe and beat Ohio State this year, Maryland might be one of the very few teams who could. So I would say look out for an upset. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. Am I going to predict Maryland to win? Maybe. But I'm certainly not as confident about Ohio State as I would be if they had C.J. Stroud, if they had a fully healthy Marvin Harrison Jr., and all of their pieces.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, and a Marvin Harrison that's 80%, I think, is better than anything.
Sure.
Obviously better than not having him. I mean, okay, so Tua, almost 1,500 yards already. Mm-hmm. Astonishing. 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Mm-hmm. QBR 76. Great. But it's like looking at J.J. McCarthy on a smaller scale. I mean, Towson, 22 of 33, 260 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Charlotte, 25 of 36, 287, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Virginia, 19 of 30, 342, 1 touchdown. Michigan State, 21 of 36, 223, 3-1. And Indiana, 24 of 34 for 352 and 5 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. I think if this defense can do what we need to do, I think on a smaller scale, Maryland kind of looks like Michigan to a degree. Similar at the quarterback position as far as what the quarterback can do. Can be heavy on the run game. Now, the only difference is, in my opinion, obviously the style and the level of competition is bigger with Michigan. And you have bigger names in certain spots that Maryland doesn't. All wide receiver or any of the receiver spots. But I wouldn't be surprised by it being close. I mean, again, if we just look back at the history, 2018 seems to be the outlier. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. That's the one game in the series that I'm like, okay, Ohio State won. I'm glad. A win is a win. Ohio State did not deserve to win. And it's just because of the way they played. I mean, Maryland seems to be, and I understand where I think Maryland can get this. I get it because Ohio State tends to be like Georgia and Texas and have a game or two where they play down to their competition. And it seems to always be with Maryland. Sometimes. I think this game is going to be a fast-paced game. I think you're going to see a lot of no huddle. I think you're going to see more in the passing game than you usually do. Of course, if Ohio State gets out to a 3-4 touchdown lead at some point, I think Ohio State begins to eat the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you see Ohio State in this game do what Michigan has done to this point. And I'm not saying that I want to see Ohio State become Michigan because,
right. Of course you don't. You don't want that.
I mean,
God forbid.
I mean, I'd love to be able to sit here and say, oh, guess what? Ohio State emptied the bench halfway through the third quarter too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Ohio State's going to pull away in the end. I think Marvin Harrison, even at 80%, like I was saying, is just unstoppable. He's a freaking god. At this point, he's better than his dad ever was. I'd be tempted to say.
Wow.
And I loved his dad. His dad was awesome. And I think Ohio State just needs to work on the trenches because you've got to withstand the rush long enough to allow Kyle McCord to have time to get the ball off. And I think plain and simply, Ohio State will win. I think it'll be 38-17 Ohio State.
So what's interesting is this is the first time I think since what's the stat 1940 that the Buckeyes have faced 5 straight previously undefeated college football teams in a row. Every single team that Ohio State faced is undefeated going into their game against Ohio State, and that includes Maryland. Hasn't happened since 1940. It's notable. Marvin Harrison Jr., Ryan Day says he's full go. I don't, he says that, but like you said, probably closer to 80%. Spraining a right ankle, it hurts. I've done it. It's not fun. It takes time to recover. There is no way that he's going to be able to do the cuts, the things that the route, like the crisp routes. It's going to be a little off. Expect that because these things do take time. It is just a sprain, but I don't know if you've ever done it. It hurts like hell.
I haven't sprained it, but I've twisted mine pretty bad.
Yeah, it hurts like hell. So like it's one thing if you're just walking around and you're just doing a regular, whatever, but you got to go out there on the football field and face contact, and you're facing you're not facing Youngstown State here. You're facing Maryland. They're not terrible. And to your point, Maryland hasn't really played anybody of note, major. Indiana's defense isn't awful. Their offense is. They fired their offensive coordinator on Sunday because of Maryland's curb stomp. They fired their OC. But yeah, so I think Maryland. It's really, really hard for me to predict a Maryland win at the shoe, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna call it 34-31 Maryland. Maryland shocks the universe and beats Ohio State at the shoe. Just like Oregon beat Ohio State at the shoe.
Nah, smooth sailing from here. We got past Notre Dame. We showed our toughness.
Yes. We're tough. We're so tough. Yep. Yep. 10 men on the field.
Boy.
Just got right there. Just got right in there. 10 men on the field. It was great.
All right.
Okay.
Now we transition to Michigan. Now, before we go into this,
yeah.
Where's it at? Come on.
It's been the 2 fumbles. What do you see about the Bears that would shut them down that way?
No.
What are we looking for here? Are you? Oh, you're muted. What? Can't hear you now. Crap.
Okay. So,
there we go.
We are who we thought they were. And if you want to crown them, then crown them. Well, guess what? I don't care if Harbaugh's putting the nobodies in halfway through the third quarter. You ain't played nobody. And guess what? Your toughest competition being Rutgers? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That ain't going to hold up. They're going to be a 6-6 bowl team.
Number 19 defense in the nation.
It's just going to get worse from here.
Yeah. Okay. So we want to talk about Michigan Natty first. Okay, I can do that. I think that the college football landscape has made it where Michigan can win a national championship. Am I going to say that they will win the national championship? Of course not. But if you look at everybody in college football, Georgia ain't played nobody either. They struggled against a team called Auburn, who I would argue Rutgers would beat. So you want to talk about ain't played nobody. Georgia ain't played nobody. Ohio State almost ain't played nobody. I would argue Notre Dame is maybe a bit overrated. Maybe they're top 20, 25. I don't think that they're top 7, 10 in the country. I'm sorry, Will. I don't. Okay. Who else? Texas. They have played somebody, right? So if you want to argue that, I'll give you that. And I've said that, number one, I would either have Texas or I would have Michigan. Because Texas has played Alabama, they had an incredible game against Alabama, and they've played everybody on their schedule pretty tough. They're going into the Red River rivalry. That's the new name for it, the Red River rivalry. And and they're going in there, and Texas is probably going to take care of business against Oklahoma. And if they do, I would put them until Michigan plays Penn State. And if they beat Penn State at Beaver, then they overtake at that point. But I personally don't mind having Texas at 1 right now. Who I wouldn't have at 1 is Georgia, based on the fact that honestly they look like Michigan has been putting away their opponents. Look, I understand, and even Mark Rogers has said this on the show, Voice of College Football. Yes, the opponents haven't been great, but the level of dominance has made it almost boring, right? He said this on his show, right? Almost boring because of the level of just military precision of being able to dominate every phase of the game. So in the Nebraska game in particular, this is a team, Nebraska, that is under Matt Rule, tough physical coach, has a tendency to turn around programs pretty quickly, but the first year tends to drag, right? First year hasn't been great under Matt Rule in any tenure that he's been at. And then he tends to do this, right? The second and third year. But the stats here First downs, 26-10. Total yards, 436-305, right? Rushing, 249-106. And time of possession, which I think Michigan has done a tremendous job with, 38 minutes. 38 minutes to 22 minutes. It's better than they did against Rutgers. And if they can do anywhere close to that against Minnesota, then they're going to be in a really good spot. The game is 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's on NBC Network, and I think that they're going to have to do the same game plan as before, right? This isn't the same PJ Fleck team that beat Penn State back in 2019, right? They have a different OC now. They have a different quarterback now. I had a Gophers guru, Daniel House, on the show last night. Everybody can go and watch that on Michigan Wolverines Live, the voice of college football. And we'll have a clip of that. If it isn't already up, it'll be up tomorrow probably. But we really dove deep into PJ Fleck's team this year. And obviously we know it was a struggle to beat Nebraska, who Michigan just destroyed. Okay. They struggled to beat LA Lafayette. They lost to Northwestern. Okay. Northwestern, who basically, is that even a football team? I mean, they're barely a football team. So if they take away the run, just like they've done every week, if they take away the run and they deny Kalik Manis the ability to run, because he can run, and he actually scored a touchdown in the last, a rushing touchdown in the last game. If they deny Darius Taylor plays, he did suffer a leg injury. He might play, though. He has averaged 133 yards per game. So Michigan's going to need to shut him down. But the good news is that Michigan is one of the best run defenses in the country. They're number one in the entire country in opponent points per game. That is extremely notable. Opponents score on average 6 points against Michigan. So that is first out of 133 teams. And guess what? Some of those 133 teams have also played nobody. So Georgia ain't played nobody, as we said. So first out of 133, pretty good. So I think that they'll take care of business against Minnesota. I believe I had it at 42-3 was my prediction on last night's show.
I mean, if we want to be serious and for a minute and talk about this defense, because I mean, realistically, and here's the thing, okay? I get that, you know, Mr. number 2 or 3 pick in the next draft, Mr. JJ McCarthead.
Yes, Goat Carthy, yes.
Is on pace to break the Michigan single-season passing touchdown record. I get that. But if you can't win a playoff game, it don't mean anything. Win a meaningful game outside the conference.
Okay.
Now if we look at the defense, I could care less. See, here's the thing. I would almost rather have the Ohio State offense that we have and have the Michigan defense. I mean, you guys are completely stacked with people. Rayshawn Benny at defensive tackle. Ernest Hausman at linebacker.
Yeah.
Derek Moore at the edge. Makari Page at safety. I mean, these guys are Junior Colson at linebacker.
Yeah. Will
Mike
Johnson, quarterback. Yep.
Sanders still at the nickel. Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle, and safety.
He's going first round.
I mean, these guys are just insane. And honestly, guess what? Michigan is an SEC team because guess what? Your defense carries you. Honestly, it does, in my opinion, because
Okay.
the defense makes the stops. They're holding the teams. JJ's only thrown, 10, if that, touchdowns? It was 7-3 last I checked. I mean, Michigan is an SEC team currently, the way that it's built. You're strong on defense, and your offense is good enough to get you through and score what you need to score. I mean, Ohio State's right there with them, but I want to throw up. Michigan's just a little bit, in my opinion, they're a little bit more put together.
What's
Than Ohio
notable? What's notable is, and this doesn't usually happen, Buckeye Mike. What's notable is that the receiving yards for Michigan, 1,137, and the rushing yards, 920. It never happens like that. This is next level. And if you watched Roman Wilson make that catch, what we're calling the helmet catch, to get to score that first touchdown, where he had to go over the guy's helmet to catch the ball, and he was able to hold on to it. It bobbled for a second. He was able to make that grab and come down with a touchdown. That is an NFL caliber catch. And JJ had to put it in just the right spot to do that. We don't have quarterbacks that do that very often. He's clearly the best, in my view, the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Taulia is probably second, and you're going to have to face him, on Saturday. But yeah, I think JJ looks good. Could he have a couple of more touchdowns? Sure. But he looks like a field general in that pocket. 79% completion percentage, I believe, is close to the best in the country, if not the best in the country. And I think he's got time to stack those touchdowns up in conference play to at least make a case to go to New York. I don't think he's going to beat Caleb Williams at this point. I don't think he's going to beat, Michael Penix at this point. But I think he could get there. I think he could make an appearance in New York, which would be awesome because he's probably going to be playing on Sundays very, very soon. So, yeah, I think Michigan is built to win a natty. And because Georgia doesn't have their quarterback, Ohio State doesn't have C.J. Stroud because he's off at the Texans, just being ridiculously good at the Texans right now.
Hasn't thrown an interception yet.
Hasn't thrown an interception, destroyed the Steelers, right?
Almost 1,300 yards already.
Yeah, he isn't at the Buckeyes anymore. So you got Kyle midcourt, and it's going to be what it is. And if MHJ is healthy enough, you'll probably skate by Maryland, but you're going to have a tough slate at the end with Penn State and Michigan. So in my view, it's Michigan, it's Texas, it's probably Oregon, unless Washington can, keep it going. But they seemed kind of weak at times this past Saturday. And Oregon is just curb stomping everybody. They made Colorado look like chumps, and then USC struggled against Colorado the next week, even though they have elite offense of their own. So I think Oregon's going to be there, and then it's really a toss-up for that last team. Could Georgia pull it together? Could somebody else pull it together? I don't know. Maybe FSU, rallies. They've also looked a little questionable against Boston College and others, but obviously they beat Clemson. They had a great win against LSU. They could be in that 4 spot. And people are saying, well, what about Penn State? What about Penn State? Penn State is who we thought that they were. They beat Iowa. I was wrong about that. I thought Iowa would win. But Iowa is missing half their offense. And Iowa has the worst play caller in the history of college football. And I thought it would improve, and it didn't. I thought that they would use Michigan concepts, and they kind of sort of did last week. They did use an Eric All play that was used in 2021. But yeah, Penn State is who we thought that they were. Aller is good, not great. They're going to lose to the best teams in the Big Ten, in my opinion, and maybe a team that they shouldn't lose to as well. I have them at 9-3. I'm gonna hold to 9-3 on Penn State, and so my 4 teams, at least right now, Michigan, and Texas, and FSU, and Oregon, I think might be the 4 at this point.
I mean, so this team is built to be able to win a national championship. It's built to win it right now.
Mhm.
The only difference is you can never make it out of the first round. Ever. And you want to call TCU a fluke? I'm looking at you, Mike Ford. I know you're not in the chat right now. Nobody is. But people are watching. I'm looking at you.
There are people watching.
Guess what? You lost to TCU. It's still a thing. It might be annoying, but nobody forgot. Yeah. Because Ohio State wouldn't lose to TCU in the fashion that you did. And you want to talk about 9 out of 10 times they got lucky. Show the product on the field. Tell me they got lucky again.
TCU was the better team that day. I still maintain Michigan wins that game 8 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10. Ohio State, do I think that they'd beat TCU? Probably yes. But here's the thing. Michigan went away from their identity. And part of the reason is they didn't have Blake Corum, but they went away from their identity of physicality. They started, and I'm going to blame Matt Weiss. I'm putting the loss on Matt Weiss's shoulders, Mr. Computer Access Crimes. Philly special really on 4th and 2. Blake Corum punches that in for a touchdown. That half a yard that Khalil Mullings fumbles, Blake Corum punches that in for a touchdown. Donovan Edwards isn't that guy, and Khalil Mullings wasn't that guy on that day, but one could argue he's become that guy. So I love it. Today we're really getting today we're getting the backup here.
Here's the thing, Maverick and John.
Love it.
I love the name, by the way. I love
a good name.
Top Gun. Awesome movie. Here's the thing. If you look at the way Ohio State is currently built and the way that Michigan is currently built, it's roughly a carbon copy. It's just that Michigan is more of a well-oiled, fine-tuned machine compared to Michigan. Michigan has had this identity since Harbaugh got there. It's just Harbaugh recently finally got his head out of his rear end and remembered how to run a freaking team to get to the postseason. I mean, you got me there. You're respected in the Big Ten finally by winning back-to-back Big Ten championships. Although Ohio State won 4 in a row at one point, with the Big Ten championship game in effect. I don't know if it'll be a carbon copy of the last 2 years because, the defense is built enough to be able to stop the run. And if JTT and Sawyer can come off the edge fast enough, it can collapse the pocket, force JJ. Here's the thing, okay? TCU, this is why everybody keeps bringing up TCU. TCU has laid out the blueprint of how to beat Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
If you rattle McCarthy, you rush McCarthy, force him outside the pocket, force him to throw to a guy who he thinks is wide open, jump the read, Ohio State can win the game. All they have to do is look at the Fiesta Bowl play-by-play, the tape for the Fiesta Bowl. If that's what Jim Knowles, that's all you got to do from now the day after the game, watch the Fiesta Bowl tape. That's how you beat Michigan right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Pray that Blake Corum somehow doesn't make it to the stadium. That's how you beat Michigan. You hope Blake Corum doesn't make it to the stadium, because if he makes it to the stadium, you're done.
Well, okay, if you want to talk about Blake Corum, then watch the
Sure.
Orange Bowl against Georgia tape.
Okay. Sure.
There you go. That's
Yes.
the other way you can do it. I mean, yes, the Ohio State defense isn't as big as the Georgia guys, but I mean, there is tape there on how to defeat Michigan. It's out there.
Yep. Cade McNamara can't run, and he got destroyed. And yes, Georgia out-physicaled Michigan, which is the only time any team has out-physicaled Michigan since 2020. And they had the talent. They had NFL guys all over that field. Like, yes, Georgia was the far better team. But when J.J. McCarthy got into that game, Michigan did score a touchdown.
Yeah, garbage time
touchdown. The blueprint to beat 2021 Michigan is what Ohio State tried to do in 2022. You guys tried to beat the 2021 version of us in 2022, but the problem is we didn't have Cade McNamara under center anymore. We had a guy named JJ Goat Carthy, and he knows how to throw it. Remember that they said that kid couldn't throw the deep ball. And then what happened from there? CJ goes out for 2 touchdowns. Then that opens up the run for Donovan Edwards. How do you beat Michigan? You have to put a spy on JJ McCarthy. That's number one. He can get you with his legs. You have to spy JJ McCarthy. And you have to somehow neutralize Blake Corum. There have been teams that have tried. I think you have to try to pick JJ off as well. You have to have a really strong secondary. Bowling Green showed you that you can pick JJ off, and then obviously that can make things a little bit more difficult. But at the end of the day, Roman Wilson is the catch-22, because Michigan doesn't usually have wide receivers that can do that. Roman Wilson has been working extremely hard in the offseason, and what we've seen so far, Buckeye Mike, is that he's had 326 receiving yards already in the season. He's already had, Buckeye Mike, he's had 8 touchdowns. He had 4 the whole season last year. He has 8 touchdowns this year. And we still have half the season to go, and we haven't hit the postseason yet. And he has 8 touchdowns on the board because he can run better routes. He can beat his guy in the secondary, and he can make things happen. I think it's going to be very tough for a team to beat Michigan this year. You're going to have to dominate on offense. You're going to have to dominate on defense. You're going to have some special teams fluke plays. And by the way, that's what happened with TCU. If you want to go to TCU, everything went their way, and Michigan shot itself in the foot and made a bunch of mistakes. And there's no excuse for those mistakes, but that's what happened. That's why TCU won, because it's not that TCU beat Michigan. Michigan beat Michigan, and TCU, all credit to them, capitalized.
Yeah, that's the thing. So in 2022, Ohio State figured out the TCU game plan before TCU played Michigan. The only difference is TCU capitalized, whereas Ohio State couldn't. I vaguely remember, still, it's burned in my head, actually. The close corner touchdown pass that ended up not being a touchdown to Cade Stover that CJ threw, where Sanders still came in, and as Jackson continuously keeps saying, yoink! Oh, if he catches that, Ohio State wins the game. And can I address this real quick? So, Maverick, you obviously don't know your Ohio State-Michigan history. You may be a Michigan fan, but you obviously don't know your history, because Ohio State didn't win a game in the series until the 16th game. So when you already have a 15-game series lead, or a 15-game lead in the series, it is very hard to work your all the way back. And here's the thing. Ohio State periodically, until Woody Hayes, only periodically beat Michigan. It wasn't until Woody Hayes came in that it was basically constantly beating Michigan. That means you guys won
Leather helmet. We did win a lot in our leather helmet era. Absolutely. Very proud of it, too. Thank you.
They have the worst. Michigan has the worst. Well, in Ohio State eyes, the worst win in the series. The best win for them, 86-0 was one game, and they called it like halfway through the third quarter.
Wow, mercy rule.
That's when you know time ago. Crazy. And I think TCU played a perfect game. Didn't they have three?
They did have some turnovers, but no. But here's I didn't say they played a perfect game. What I said is that Michigan made a tremendous amount of mistakes that TCU was able to capitalize on, okay, including 2 pick sixes. Okay, when you have 2 pick sixes in a game, that's probably going to be ball game. And still, J.J. McCarthy, putting the game on his back with 1 minute and 40 seconds in the game, had an opportunity. He didn't get it, but he brought Michigan all the way back to almost beating TCU. Now, it didn't happen, but my point is we played so bad, and we still almost won.
Because TCU
with 1 minute 40 seconds.
TCU let off the gas. TCU should have mopped the floor with Michigan, hands down. Well, you know what? I'm glad you know you're Ohio State, Michigan. I'm just saying.
That's good.
If you knew the history from start to present.
I wish I could go to damn near every game.
Me too. Then you would have known what I said. I mean, go pick up a freaking college football history book, a Michigan history book, an Ohio State history book. It'll tell you in the book. Michigan won every game, starting with the Fielding Yost era. Won every game from 1901 to, what was it, 1916, 1917?
Sounds right.
Chick Harley is the reason we beat Michigan. And Chick Harley is the first well-known Buckeye. It's between Chick and Les Horvath. So, I mean.
And to your point, Woody Hayes is really when things really turned around, and it became a more of an Ohio State led situation. Of course, Bo did get a couple of wins in there. That's why they call it the 10-year war, and why we call our show the 30-minute war, to kind of harken back to that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, Michigan in leather helmets was ridiculous. They were basically the Alabama of that era. Like it was absolutely dominant.
Absolutely. I mean,
not a lot of forward passing.
Yeah. So, okay, 1897 was the first game.
Wesley has an interesting point, actually. Wesley, I think you're right here. Give credit to Michigan for a great 2 years. Michigan is a very veteran team. Correct. 78% returning production. I'm really interested to see if they can continue in the future with a lot of talent leaving. Wesley, this is why I'm saying we need to win the national championship this year, because a lot of people are about to go to the NFL, maybe even the coach. So, although there is rumors, I heard today, they are discussing. I heard it from, I want to say it was Chris Ballas, and they, he knows. I mean, he's like plugged into the program. That they're working on the extension, the contract, and we might be hearing some news on a contract extension for Jim Harbaugh. And if I were President Santa Ono, I'd get that thing done immediately, because he's going to be on the short list for every single NFL opening, top 3 for every single NFL opening,
whether
him go. The title or not.
Let him go. If he wants to go, let him go.
You would love that. You would love that. I don't know.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing too. Okay.
Uh-huh.
There's reports that supposedly one Urban Meyer wants to take the Michigan State job.
No, he denied that.
You just don't want to have to deal with little brother finally beating the crap out of you on a regular basis because Urban Meyer's proven he can beat Jim Harbaugh regularly, while
Feldman
also
said it
having
ain't
to deal
happening.
with his predecessor, Ryan Day, on the back end of the season.
Feldman said it ain't happening. Brady Quinn said it ain't happening, and he talks to Harbaugh, or he talks to Urban constantly. So it ain't happening. Sorry.
I mean, it's been reported, but I mean,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, but Feldman and
personally-
Brady Quinn, I think I trust a little bit more than some rando
True.
Fox radio host.
True. I mean, personally, I think it's time for Urban to just be done. I think he's doing just fine with his gig with Fox.
Yeah. Just hang out with the co-eds. Go on your Fox show every week. Make money. Like, stay away from college football. It's fine. He might go to Texas A&M, though. That if there was one team I could see him going to, it's Texas A&M. Why? They have an absolute metric shit ton of money. And they are in a pickle right now with Jimbo Fisher. If they have another mediocre season, he gone. And they might that's the one team that might call Urban, and Urban might consider it because they could give him a huge salary.
I would see if it makes sense and it's a good fit, then I'd be okay with Urban leaving. When it comes to Michigan State, I mean, you're in a constant rebuild at Michigan State. You have 1 to 2 good years every so often, and that's not the way Urban flies.
Right.
And plus, I think Urban, having coached at Ohio State, I don't think he would want to coach against Ohio State unless it was a type of thing where he had to, a la the postseason.
Sure. Right. Like if Texas A&M were to go up against Ohio State in a bowl game.
Yeah.
Like that's different. Yeah.
But not on a regular basis.
Yeah. Maverick says Urban shot it down. So he must have put out a statement. I hadn't seen that yet, but I did hear actual people that I trust in the media saying it ain't happening. But apparently he might have said something now. Here we go. Alrighty.
All right. Well, before we go,
Yeah.
I think Michigan will win, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'll be 38-10. I think Minnesota has enough to finally break this streak of not giving up more than 7 points. I mean, this is ridiculously dumb. How, like, you're bringing out the little stats that nobody pays attention to, and I just, everybody has a chance against everybody. Let's be clear on that. I'm sick and tired of this all Ohio State so bad, Maryland's going to run them over. I'll admit Maryland has a chance. But the fact that Ohio State's won every game in this series, didn't deserve to win one of them, and still won, what's history tell you? History tells you Ohio State's going to win. But yeah,
38-10 under the lights. This is a night game, so I can see it because night games can always be a little tricky. I believe that the last time Michigan lost to Minnesota, which was the Dark Ages, 2014, Brady Hoke, idiot coach keeps in a concussed quarterback and just abysmal. I'm pretty sure that was a night game. I know we all want to forget 2014 existed, but 2014 laid the groundwork to get Jim Harbaugh, a.k.a. Project Unicorn. They got him. So there you go.
for some reason I kept thinking Minnesota beat Michigan in COVID year, but no.
No, you're thinking of Indiana and Penn State and Wisconsin and Michigan State and others.
So this is the thing. Like, okay, there were some games. Okay, going back to this whole No one's ever done this before. There were only a few games in 2006 where Ohio State played their starters for most of the game. Trestle ball was always get out big and pull the starters. I mean, that's the play of everyone. Games weren't really close. I mean, Iowa was 38-17. Here's the thing. YouTube has all of these highlights. So for those of Michigan fans that want to run their mouth, who's ever done this before, take your time. It's like 20 minutes max for highlights each game. Sit down and go back and watch the highlights. And if they really didn't pull them, okay. But at the end of the day, who cares when people get pulled? I mean, teams win in dominant fashion all the time. Look at the Dolphins. The Dolphins, as of late, historically bad. They dropped 70 on Denver.
Yes. Yeah, the Broncos are pretty awful this year. Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's a
little non-biased decor.
Oh wow. Okay. I was gonna say Mason Blue in a Buckeye house, but usually burns or something. It like catches fire if there's Mason Blue.
No, because I gotta have something to root for you guys when I root for you guys, because I always do root for you guys out of conference.
I appreciate that. There you go. Maverick's been our MVP in chat today. We appreciate that. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. So with that being said, we want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and we'll keep you posted on when the next one will come out. Yeah, where's that at? I can't find it. Where'd it go?
Anyway. While you're doing that, I'm going to remind everybody, got a couple of shows that I do. So Monday nights, so we'll go with the next one. So the next one, Saturday night, will be my next show. That's going to be Michigan post-game live after the game. So it's going to be a late one with Dre Artis and myself after Minnesota. Monday nights at 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, I host The Ocho, which is the second half of Big Ten Live. And what we do is we bring on a panel of Voice of College Football community, including sometimes Buckeye Mike shows up to that panel. That's a good time on the Voice of College Football main site. And then Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, Michigan Wolverines Live, where we have Tanner Wooten. Coming up this Tuesday will be Jeffrey, Only Talk Sports, is going to be giving the Indiana preview coming up this coming Tuesday. So very excited to have Jeffrey stop by.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to talk to him about next week then.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was looking for in the banner section. Subscribe to the channels. Subscribe to Buckeye Mike as we push to 200. That's the next goal. Go over and subscribe to the Voice of College Football Michigan channel, where you can see John all the time. Subscribe to the Voice of College Football. They're awesome over there. They do awesome work. Subscribe to our partner, Shady Sports Network.
Yes.
We're almost at 1,000 subs. We're so close. We're like 65 away. So go over, subscribe to them, help them out as we push towards 1,000 over there. And thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight. I hope everyone has a blast the rest of the week. And
go Blue.
Yeah, go Bucks, go Blue. College football is in full effect, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the games.
I'm a game changer.